Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari. Yasodanana Braja Janaranjana. Yasodanana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari. Yasodanana Braja Janaranjana. Yasodanana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Brahmadakacharya Asadhara Satushi Shiman His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hariva Slava Zabrani Bhaktas Slava Shri Guru Shri Gaurangi Om Agyana Timanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yudha Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Pradina Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakans Vitam Cha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hri Priye Vanchakapa Trivyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyebhacha Patiranam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 4. The appearance of Sri Narada. Text number. What's the text number? 8. Sago dohana matram hi griheshu grihamedinam avekshate mahabhagas tirti korvams tad ashramam sago dohana matram hi griheshu grihamedinam avekshate mahabhagas tirti korvams tad ashramam sagodohana matram hi griheshu grihamedinam avekshate mahabhagas tirti korvam sadashramam sago gohana matram hi griheshu grihamedinam avekshate mahabhagas tirti korvam sadashramam. Ladies. Sagodohana matram hi Eshu grihamedinam avekshate mahabhagas tirti korvam sadashramam saha hi Shukadeva Goswami Godohana matram only for the time of milking the cow. He certainly griheshu in the house grihamedinam of the householders avekshate waits mahabhaga the most fortunate tirti pilgrimage Korvan transforming tat ashramam the residence. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. He, Shukadeva Goswami, was accustomed to stay at the door of a householder only long enough for a cow to be milked. And he did this just to sanctify the residence. Please repeat. He, Shukadeva Goswami, was accustomed to stay at the door of a householder only long enough for a cow to be milked. And he did this just to sanctify the residence. Purport. Shukadeva Goswami met Emperor Parikshit and explain the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. He was not accustomed to stay at any householder's residence for more than half an hour at the time of milking the cow, and he would just take alms from the fortunate householder. That was to sanctify the residence by his auspicious presence. Therefore, Shukadeva Goswami is an ideal preacher, established in the transcendental position. From his activities, those who are in the renounced order of life and dedicated to the mission of preaching the message of Godhead should learn that they have no business with householders save and except to enlighten them in transcendental knowledge. Such asking for alms from the householder should be for the purpose of sanctifying his home. One who is in the renounced order of life should not be allured by the glamour of the householder's worldly possessions and thus become subservient to worldly men. For one who is in the renounced order of life, this is much more dangerous than drinking poison and committing suicide. Sago dohana matram hi griheshu griha medinam avekshite mahabhagas tirti kurvanti yad ashramam. He, Shukadeva Goswami, was accustomed to stay at the door of a householder only long enough for a cow to be milked, and he did this just to sanctify the residence. Going to Srila Prabhupada, all of us are supposed to be in the renounced order of life. Devotees naturally are supposed to be renounced. Renouncing the material concept of life means, as Krishna says repeatedly in the Bhagavad Gita, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavi Hastani Shuni Chaiva Swapake Cha Pandita Samadarshana, that the humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with an equal vision the learned and gentle Brahman, the cow, the elephant, the dog, and the dog eater. In other words, the learned person sees that everything is the property of Krishna, and everyone is Krishna's servant. Doesn't matter which form of life they're in. The actual person is the soul, and inside the soul is the Supreme Lord as the super soul, guiding them. Therefore, ultimately, everyone is eternally related to Krishna, and what everyone does is under Krishna's direction, either for spiritual elevation, or if one so desires, Krishna gives intelligence for material sense gratification. In any case, the devotees, their only business, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Yari Deka Tari Kaha, Krishna Upadesh, Amara Agar Guruhana Tari Desh. Whoever we meet, whoever we see, Yari Deka Tari Kaha, whoever we speak to, Krishna Upadesh, we should tell them something about Krishna. We should try to elevate them in some way. We may not always be able to tell people directly about Krishna, but at least we should try to encourage them in some way or another to make progress towards understanding Krishna. Therefore, for some people, Varna and Ashram is appropriate if they cannot take the Krishna conscious activities. Still, as Prabhupada, when he was talking to Professor Katowski at the University of Moscow, and he was trying to explain to Professor Katowski the difference between the body and the soul, how the body changes, but the soul within the body is always the same. Now, Professor Katowski was a born-again communist. Communism is more or less atheism. And therefore, the idea that there's a spiritual being different from the body was not very compatible with his philosophy. Therefore, he could not understand what Prabhupada was talking about. So then Prabhupada tried to explain to him that at least in society, we should have first-class men. First class means samadhamma tapaso cham shantir arjunam evacha jnanam vijnanam astikyam brahma karma savavajam. There should be a class of persons who are sama. They have their minds are stable. You more or less know how they're going to act because they're not influenced so much by the material nature. Therefore, they're reliable. They're predictable. While persons who have an unsteady nature, they're unpredictable. You don't know if they're your friend one moment and they're your most virulent enemy the next moment. And you don't know why they go from one state to the next. Just like Kamsa, when he was going to kill Devaki and Vasudeva, Devaki on the day of her marriage to Vasudeva, because he heard from the sky that the 8th son of Devaki was going to kill him. Therefore, Kamsa was very much afraid of being killed, and therefore he immediately took Devaki's hair and was going to cut off her head. Not something you expect from your brother on your wedding day. But then Kamsa was a demon. A demon can do anything for his own interest. Killing his father or mother or brother or sister is not a big deal for a demon, because their only business in life is to gratify their own desires. So Vasudeva tried to pacify him with philosophy, but demons don't like philosophy very much, especially real philosophy, because it contradicts their aim in life, which is just to gratify their desires. That's their philosophy. Demon philosophy is very simple. You can learn it in one moment. If it feels good, then you do it, whatever it is. So Kamsa was that type of philosopher. And so no matter what Vasudeva told him about transmigration of the soul and about occurring sinful reactions, Kamsa was not going to listen to it. But finally, Vasudeva said, all right, I'll give over whatever children are born by Devaki, I'll give you, and you can do with them what you want. After all, it's the 8th child of Devaki which will kill you, so you have nothing to fear until the 8th child comes. But Kamsa he said, yes, that sounds good. And Prabhupada said, because Vasudeva was such a nice devotee, he was known for his truthfulness. So even Kamsa, who was a first-class demon, trusted him. But then Prabhupada writes in the purport that Vasudeva was a little skeptical because never trust a politician, or it says a woman, which might be a little controversial nowadays. Women in the sense, women who are fickle-minded, who make a decision one time, one moment, and then by sentiment they change it without any reason, without any real intelligent reason. They just change it, and they're convinced that whatever they're feeling is the absolute truth. So anyone who's like that, whether it's a woman or a man, how can you trust them? They have no reference to reality. So, although when he handed Kamsa, Vasudeva handed Kamsa the first child that was born of himself and Devaki, Kamsa said, no, you can take the child back because I don't have any fear from the first one. It's the 8th one who's going to kill me, supposed to kill me. But Vasudeva didn't trust Kamsa because he was a politician. Politicians, as we know, there's a sure way of knowing when they're lying. As we've heard before, it's when their mouth starts moving. So knowing that, Vasudeva was skeptical that Kamsa would actually keep his word. And indeed, when Narada Muni came and told Kamsa some word jugglery about you can't trust that it's not this, he said, well, maybe the 8th one is the first one. Some kind of word jugglery. And Kamsa was listening and got all nervous and said, maybe this is the one that's going to kill me. So he immediately went and took the baby back and killed it. It's one of the earlier examples of child abuse. Actually, Prahlad Maharaj is the first one in history, but the practice continued even in Dwapara Yuga. So in any case, sama dhamma tapasocham, without having a steady mind based upon real knowledge, one is unpredictable, and therefore one can actually do good for oneself or for anyone else. If one is unpredictable, one can do anything at any moment, cause harm to himself and harm to others. So how can they be trusted with any responsible position? And Dhamma means sense control. If the senses are pushing us and we go along with them, then we're also subjected to doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. Even we try to have a stable mind, but if the senses push us, then we may do something simply because of the pushing of the senses, and the senses generally don't push us in the right direction. When the senses tell us, eat more, it's not necessarily that they're doing it for our health. And when we eat more, it doesn't really advance our health very much, too much. Just like Jagannatha Pandit was with Ramachandra Puri. Ramachandra Puri was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. And at the time of leaving his body, Madhavendra Puri was calling out in separation from Krishna. So Ramachandra Puri, being an impersonalist, he said to his spiritual master, my dear Lord, you're leaving your body. At this time, you should start thinking about Brahman. Don't lament. Because he had no conception of what spiritual separation was. Therefore, he considered his spiritual master, Madhavendra Puri's feelings of separation from Krishna to be on the material platform. So he said, give up this lamentation and think about Brahman. So his spiritual master cursed him. He said, get out of here, you rascal. If I see your face at the time of my leaving my body, I certainly won't obtain my destination. Not something you want your spiritual master to tell you, especially when he's leaving his body. Because of that, the latent impersonalism of Ramachandra Puri became fully manifested. And therefore, he was a disturbance wherever he went. When he came to Jagannath Puri, he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's followers, such as Jagannatha Pandit, and his practice was to sit them down and offer them a prasad. And they'd eat as much prasadam as they thought was necessary, but Ramachandra Puri would insist that they eat more. So out of respect to such a senior Vaishnava, they honored his request and ate some more. And finally, after they were completely full, they couldn't eat anymore, Ramachandra Puri would look at them and say, I've heard that the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eat too much, and now it's confirmed. You're supposed to be in the renouncer of life, but I see you're eating more than required, and therefore, how is it possible you'll be able to control your senses? In this way, he criticized all the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the point is, sometimes we may be requested to eat too much prasadam, but generally it's not a good idea. Prabhupada, when he used to go to engagements, sometimes in order to make life members in India, sometimes he'd go to 4 or 5 householders in one day. And they all offer a lot of prasadam, very nice prasadam, because generally these were very wealthy persons, householders, very opulent, and therefore they wanted to offer very opulent prasadam to Prabhupada and his followers. So the followers of Srila Prabhupada who were accompanying him in India, they were rather new to India, and they didn't really know that it's not the West. You can't eat as much as you want and get away with it in India. As Chanaka Pandit says, if you don't know whether to go somewhere or not to go somewhere, better not to go somewhere. If you don't know if you should eat more or not eat more, better off not eat more, unless it's the winter where your fire digestion is stronger. In any case, the followers, wow, this is great. We're not going to starve in India. We're having 5 big feasts every day. Therefore, you may have heard of the tales of the devotees getting sick in India also. India is a place where you can get all kinds of varied diseases. You can become a case. They can write a book about your diseases that you get in India. Typhoid, cholera, dysentery is a favorite one. Very embarrassing when you're coming back from India. You're stationed in the toilet in the airplane. That becomes your seat. In any case, the devotees ate huge feasts, but Prabhupada would just eat a little tiny bit, slowly. So his host wouldn't think he didn't like the food, but he just ate very, very slowly, just a little bit wherever he went. Because Prabhupada had enough experience, and he had sense and mind control. And he also made a lot of life members that way. He got a lot of sick followers. So. Dhammas, tapa, austerity, socham, cleanliness. These are shantya arjavam evacha. Arjavam means simplicity, truthfulness. Now these are the qualities of a human being. People may think, well, this is very sentimental, controlling your senses, controlling your mind, being clean, being truthful. Nowadays, people are thinking this is all sentiment because they're animals. If you go up to a tiger and say, my dear tiger, can you wash your pores before you eat that animal? He probably won't take your instruction very seriously. He has no concept of what we consider cleanliness. And if you advise him, all right, you didn't wash your pores before you ate the animal, but at least wash them now. He still won't do it. As far as being austere or controlling their mind, if you tell a tiger, my dear tiger, please don't eat this animal because it could be someone's mother, control your mind. It's very unlikely the tiger is going to say, oh yes, I'm sorry, I should have some feelings. Such a nice little deer. Why should I bother it? No, he has no conception of controlling his mind. Whatever he feels like, that's what he does. But a human being has to have some sense and mind control, some austerity, some cleanliness, some truthfulness, some knowledge of what's to be done and what's not to be done by the scripture, and then one becomes a human being. And to learn that, one has to become a first-class man or woman. Therefore, Prabhupada wanted the devotees to be trained up to become Brahmins. And in the 10th canto, Prabhupada mentions that the Gurukul, which was for both boys and girls, in Dallas, it should be utilized to train the boys and the girls to become first class. So they can go door to door and enlighten people. He also recommended they learn astrology because every gentleman is interested in their past, present, and future. It's a good way of getting in to the door. Oh, can you I see on your palm, well, I see something's about to happen to you. Really? What? Tell me. Well, I have a couple of other doors. No, come in. Tell me all about my past, present, and future. So they should also learn astrology and a little Ayurveda, because everyone wants to get cured of their disease. So Shukadeva Goswami was such a personality who his only business was to enlighten the householders. Now that doesn't mean he didn't try and enlighten the brahmacharis too. But the brahmacharis, they already had their teachers. It was the householders. Now the brahmacharis would go door to door and they beg alms from the householders for their benefit. But generally speaking, they wouldn't give the householders any instructions, because householders, the worst person you could probably preach to, the one who won't listen to you, who's guaranteed won't listen to you, is your mother. If you try to tell your mother about the absolute truth, she'll think you're crazy. Generally speaking, sometimes it's not like that. So therefore the brahmacharis wouldn't give them any philosophy. They just beg the alms and give it to their spiritual master or their teacher. Now the sannyasis, when they went, the householders were anxious to see them, especially if they could tell them something about Ayurveda and astrology. And then they'd also interject something about Krishna consciousness in the conversation. So that's the same thing for any devotee who's supposed to be a teacher, because we're all supposed to be teachers. That should be the mood. As Prabhupada writes in the purport, this is Uddhava, Krishna speaking to Uddhava in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam about the duties of the different orders of life. And here he's talking about the duties of the acharya, the teacher. So he says, Acharya, Krishna says to Uddhava, which is found in the first chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Acharyamam vijaniyam navamanyate karichit namartya buddhya suyeta sarvadeva mayo guru. One should know the Acharya is myself and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he is a representative of all the demigods. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, this is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:17-27, spoken by Krishna when he was questioned by Uddhava regarding the four social and spiritual orders of society. The Lord was specifically instructing how a brahmachari should behave under the care of a spiritual master. A spiritual master is not an enjoyer of the facilities offered by his disciples. He is like a parent. Without the attentive service of his parents, a child cannot grow to manhood. Similarly, without the care of the spiritual master, one cannot rise to the plane of transcendental service. So the spiritual master is supposed to be like an attentive parent. Now, generally speaking, when the child is young, just like we have little children coming here sometimes, and everyone wants to help the little child. Everyone's in love with little children. Old people are not so much in love with. Little children, everyone's in love with. So, the spiritual master is like an attentive parent, because children are naturally attractive, cute, funny, playful. As I said before, even little cockroaches, if you look at them, they're cute. Have you ever seen a little cockroach? Well, that's why you don't think it's cute. Of course, I wouldn't play with a little cockroach either, but it's a lot nicer than its parent. So little children are you want to give them some service. What service can you get from little babies or children? You have to give them service. So the spiritual master should see his disciples and his followers as just like little children. He has to help out. So that in itself is a reward. Just like we see the ladies They get so happy when these little children come. They can offer their affection to the little children. They can't offer their affection to anyone else. It would seem weird. My dear brahmachari, can I be a little affectionate with you? What? Get out of here. But for the little children, it's normal to give them affection, and they reciprocate very nicely. So that's how the spiritual master is supposed to be. And that's his reward, not that he's going to get, dakshin from his disciples, and he's going to get rich and have a big house and whatever. He's going to be a bachelor daddy or whatever. That's not the idea. A spiritual master is also called acharya, or a transcendental professor of spiritual science. Manu Samhita explains the duties of an acharya, describing that a bona fide spiritual master accepts charge of disciples, teaches them the Vedic knowledge with all its intricacies, and gives them their second birth. This ceremony performed to initiate a disciple into the study of spiritual science is called upaniti, or the function that brings one nearer to the spiritual master. One cannot be brought nearer to a spiritual master, cannot have a sacred thread, and thus one who cannot be brought nearer to a spiritual master, cannot have a sacred thread, and thus he is indicated to be a Shudra. The sacred thread on the body of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, is a symbol of initiation by the spiritual master. The duty of the spiritual master is to initiate a disciple with the sacred thread ceremony, and after the samskara, or purificatory process, the spiritual master actually begins to teach the disciple about the Vedas. A person born a Shudra is not barred from such spiritual initiation, provided he is approved by the spiritual master, who is duly authorized to award a disciple the right to be a Brahmana, if he finds him perfectly qualified. In the Vaya Purana, an acharya is defined as one who knows the import of all Vedic literature, explains the purpose of the Vedas, abides by the rules and regulations, teaches his disciples to act in the same way. Only out of his immense compassion does the personality of Godhead reveal himself as the spiritual master. Therefore, in the dealings of an acharya, there are no activities but those of transcendental loving service to the Lord. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Servitor, Godhead. It is worthwhile to take shelter of such a steady devotee, who is called Ashraya Vigraha, or the manifestation or form of the Lord, of whom one must take shelter. If one poses himself in an acharya, but does not have an attitude of servitorship to the Lord, he must be considered an offender, and this offensive attitude disqualifies him from being an acharya. A bona fide spiritual master always engages in unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By this test, he is known to be the direct manifestation of the Lord and genuine representative of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Anyhow, it goes on. But the point is, this is the state of consciousness in dealing with others that we're all supposed to come up to. If we go on book distribution, it's not to make money, it's to help the conditioned souls. Then Krishna will reciprocate and empower us. He generally doesn't empower his devotees to become rich or to get all their material desires fulfilled. He empowers them to help the conditioned souls, and then Krishna fulfills all our desires. So we have the aim of our preaching and our service is to develop a spiritual consciousness, not the consciousness of an enjoyer and controller of others. Then Krishna will reciprocate and empower us properly if we have the right goal of life in order to reciprocate with all living entities on the spiritual platform rather than as an enjoyer of them or as a controller of them. Then our life will become successful when we see sarvabhutastam atmanam, sarvabhutani chatmani, ikshate yoga yukta atma, sarvatar samadarshana. That the true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized soul sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. And for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost to him, nor is he ever lost to me. So if we want to become conscious of Krishna, this is one of the prerequisites. To become like Shukadeva Goswami in our dealings. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Krishna, thank you for the lecture. Sometimes I meet people and they claim they're atheists and they don't believe in God, but somehow they can accept the existence of a soul. How can how can I understand this?
Well, someone has to be God. So they think they're God. There has to be someone who's supreme. Even if you take a class in the first grade in school, someone is better than everyone else there. There's always someone better. And they're the supreme. So they can accept themselves as a soul and they think they're supreme. So that's, at least they have that conception. That much they know. The actual supreme, they don't want to. That's why we came here, is compete with the real supreme. Pretend that we're the supreme. So everyone thinks they're supreme. So they do accept there's a God. Usually it's their body who's telling them what to do. Eat this, sleep now, do this, do that. So we do have a supreme in our lives. The senses and the mind are usually the supreme. And we obey them very nicely. Anything else? Yes.
Hare Krishna, how do we reconcile that we see everyone equally, but still we behave differently with some people, like with...
Well, it's not difficult to do that. First of all, we have to see everyone how they're actually equal as spiritual beings. They all have, the little soul has the capacity to desire, and Krishna is fulfilling everyone's desires. Those who have the proper desires, they become elevated. And somehow or another, by bad association with improper persons, they develop improper desires and they become degraded. But the soul doesn't change. Only the bodies change. So according to the body one has, this just indicates whether one had favorable desires in terms of advancement spiritually, or unfavorable desires, which degrade one into the lower species of life. But the soul remains the same. His relation with Krishna. Krishna is there fulfilling desires for the soul. So when the soul has good, proper desires, it becomes elevated in the material world. And when he has improper desires, it becomes degraded. Therefore, samam sarveshu bhuteshu, samam pashani sarvatra, samavastidam ishwaram, nihinasyatmanatmanam, tato yati param gatim. Samam pashani sarvatra, samavastidam ishwaram. Let's see. Samam pashani sarvatra, samam... Samam sarveshu bhuteshu, tishtantam parameshwaram, vinashava vinashantam, yat pashyati sapashyati. One who can see the super soul present everywhere in all bodies, and that neither the soul nor the super soul within the destructible body he actually sees. Samam pashani sarvatra, samavasitim ishwaram, ehinastyatmanatmanam, tato yati param gatim. One who can see the super soul is equal everywhere, in all bodies, does not degrade himself by his mind, and thus he approaches the supreme destination. So, seeing things properly. 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Anything else? Okay, Kuala, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande Haribol.